Hey everybody, it's Josh. I want to get this beautiful day captured today. I woke up today and saw a story that it is disturbing, and I do think that it's just one more example that we live in a fallen world. But a company called Colossal, who just happens to be funded by the CIA, as well as many other mega donors, had cloned an extinct species called the dire wolf. Now, the dire wolf was a brutal cousin of the original, gray wolf, and it lived about 10,000 years ago. It went extinct about 10,000 years ago. As well as species like the short-faced bear, the dire wolf was especially monstrous. An apex predator. This is one of the main reasons why North America was one of the last continents to be populated. My morality obviously isn't shared by the seculars in the scientific community. Obviously, they do not give one damn that Christians have a problem with things like deletion of babies in the womb, cloning of even animals, all kinds of genetic experiments they're doing and genetic manipulation they're doing. We see this and we might say, well, what's the big deal? It's an animal. It's kind of cool they're doing it. Let's first look at it from a scientifically ethical side. You know, I was a huge fan of Michael Crichton. He was a great author, scientist, a doctor. And of course, his books were turned into movies a lot of times. The famous one, Jurassic Park, where the series is still going today. I think they're starting a new trilogy soon. One of the greatest authors of our time. And he goes into the dangers of playing God. He goes into the dangers that we, as a species, do not have the right to manipulate life that is created by God. We see many stories in the Bible. No stories of cloning, obviously, but I guess the closest you would get would be probably the plagues upon Egypt. Because the plagues upon Egypt were the plagues to show the Pharaoh the power of God and to let the Jews, the Israelites, free from slavery. One of the plagues that God sent down was the frogs. Now, there were apparently so many frogs you couldn't take a step without stepping on these frogs. What's funny was several of the plagues, including the one of the frogs, were able to be reproduced by the Egyptians. So as soon as the Pharaoh saw, in fact, I guess this other plague kind of works with this too. The first thing that God told Moses to do was put down a staff like this, and it turned into a snake, a serpent. Well, the Pharaoh instructed his magicians, at the time they were apparently very good at magic and things like this. So he instructed his magicians to do the same thing. Well, there were two serpents to one. And what did God do? His serpent devoured the two serpents that the Pharaoh's magicians made. Then we go back to the frogs. The Pharaoh instructed his magicians to recreate that. Start creating frogs. And so they were able to actually create frogs. Their Egyptian pantheon of gods gave them the power to do this, showing that there was a higher power in this world, but it was nowhere near what God's power was. They were actually most likely, as explained in, I believe it was Deuteronomy 32, most likely they were fallen angels. And these fallen angels, probably many of the pantheons of gods, the Greek gods, the Norse gods, the Egyptian gods, all around, these were most likely fallen angels with immense divine power that obviously the people worshipped. It says in Deuteronomy, again, I could be wrong about the verse, Deuteronomy 32, that God gave every nation his inheritance after the Tower of Babel. Now, the Tower of Babel was yet another example, but we'll get to that later. After the Tower of Babel, God allowed mankind their inheritance, and only the Israelites got the one true God. They gave in to their debased nature, their depravity, and they had gods who reflected their depravity. While the Israelites, they were still depraved, they were still in the fallen world and of the fallen world, but they had the one true God to guide them and kind of nudge them in the right direction. Not because they were somebody special. The only reason they were somebody special is because that was the chosen bloodline of the Messiah, of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So, the Egyptians were able to create the frogs, but they were not able to get rid of the frogs. You see, the difference is they were able to emulate or recreate many of the plagues that God brought down on the world, but they were not able to stop them. The meaning behind this, and it applies to today, I think it's a meaning that we should think about closely. The Egyptian false gods, the fallen angels, were able to bring evil into the world, but only the one true God, Yahweh, was able to bring the evil out of the world, to stop the evil, to bring love and compassion and mercy, stop the bleeding. These evil gods and their evil worshipers, they were absolutely able to start the bleeding, but they could not stop it. We see this today. And again, I go back to the Tower of Babel. I'll reference that before I go on, and I'll show you guys why I came to this spot today to do my video. The Tower of Babel is often misunderstood. There are obviously many meanings in this short story. It's an epic story, but it is a short story. I think it only has 10 verses in the Bible about it, in the book of Genesis. This happened after Noah's flood. God instructed the people to go in separate ways, populate all corners of the earth. What did they do? They all gathered together in a city called Babylon, and they thought that they could make a name for themselves. Their pride, their arrogance, they thought they could be their own gods. This is just a mirror image, as almost everything we do is, of the original sin of Adam. It all stems from pride. It all stems from thinking that we are special, that if just given the opportunity, just given the time, that we could be God ourselves. It is absolutely the reason for the fall of mankind. It is the reason that we remain a fallen people in a fallen world. Every single time in our own lives or in society that we start thinking that we know better than God, I'll just follow my hopes and my dreams and my passions, my pleasures, and I will dismiss everything that God tells us. Because who is that? God's never come to me. God's never shown me his power. So obviously, I am experiencing the physical world right here and right now. I have all this power myself. Why would I not use it? Well, as Jesus says, the meek shall inherit the earth. And what does that mean? The meek does not mean weak. In fact, it is just the opposite. Meek is, it's kind of, the best description of it is having a sword, but having the strength to not draw that sword. Having the power, but having the sense, the morality, and the will to not use that power against others or in opposition to God. This is why God came to the poor, the weak, and the oppressed, where Jesus came to them. Because these people were not as likely to worship their own power, their own fame, their own money. Now, again, we still have this even if we are poor, even if we are, no matter what, walk of life we're in, we will give in to our desires. We will give in to our pleasures and our lust. And, a poor man might win the lottery tomorrow and go from being a moral good man to just evil and fallen. That is our nature. If you don't think that you are capable of great evil, if you don't think that is even in the realm of possibilities for you, then you don't understand mankind, yourself, and human nature at all. It is the lesson that is taught, maybe the most important lesson. The most important lesson is that we became an enemy to God. We continue to be an enemy to God until God comes to us, shows us mercy, shows us love and compassion, and we enter into a loving relationship with him. There is really not a lot that we can do on our own. All that we can do, the entire reason given, I believe it was in Romans, for free will was freedom from righteousness. We absolutely have to have free will. It is necessary to have a world where true love exists. True love meaning agape love, which is a selfless, sacrificial love, the love that is all-encompassing that God shows us. Without evil, without the ability to have that evil, without the ability to walk away from God and reject him, well, without that ability, we would just be robots. We would be slaves. We would be puppets. So, I want you all to understand the Tower of Babel, when they came together in this city, and they wanted so badly to make a name for themselves. Their pride was just so swelled. Their ego was so swelled up. Their pride and their arrogance and their thinking they were gods, thinking they were so powerful. They disobeyed God yet again. They didn't disperse around all corners of the earth to repopulate the earth. They stayed in one place, and they tried to build a tower to the heavens. But this tower, God saw it and said, this is just the beginning of what man can do when they work together. So he destroyed the tower, he destroyed the progress on the tower, and gave them divided tongues and sent them to the corners of the earth as he instructed them to do in the first place. And we think, why would God do this? Why would God want us to not have these technological advances? These things help my life. These things help me live a more comfortable, happy life. Does God not want us to be happy? Does he hate us that much that he wants us just to suffer all the time? Exactly the opposite. God uses suffering to show us that only a life with him brings true joy, fulfillment, peace beyond all understanding, and love. God uses our suffering. I'll give you a quick example of it. So, in the book of John, the disciples and Jesus came upon a blind man. And the disciples turned to Jesus and said, Rabbi, Rabbi, is this man blind because of his sins or his father's sins? And Jesus says, this man is not blind because of his sins or his father's sins. This man is blind so the good works of God can be shown through him. And then he healed him. He is on this earth so the good works of God can be shown through him. That is what our suffering is for. That is what hardships are for. Without suffering, without struggles, we become content. We become conceited. And if we become conceited, then we turn farther away from God. We turn farther away from the true meaning of life, which is a loving relationship with God, a loving relationship with each other, one that is not the kind of love that we think it is. It is, that selfless, sacrificial love. It is just one thing after another that we keep doing, like this cloning an extinct species becomes our own Tower of Babel. It becomes our own project of passions, following our dreams. And listen to me, it brings nothing but darkness. Now, I know it seems like an innocent thing. It seems like it could be a good thing. This genetic engineering that we're doing could help mankind, people who are born with horrible disabilities and things like this. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing in itself. I'm not. However, there are great things that seem like, oh yeah, we should absolutely do that. Genetically manipulate people's genes so we can, make them superhuman or super smart or super attractive or whatever. It may start off even with good intentions, but I'm telling you, it will be our downfall. It will be. Things even like, the Neuralink. The Neuralink is Elon Musk's thing where it's a chip to where it's put into your body, into your brain, to where this chip allows you to use maybe a limb that you weren't able to use before. I don't want someone who can't use their legs or haven't been able to use their legs in their life to not be able to use their legs again. Of course I do. I'm just saying we have to stop and we have to consider, what are the downsides of this? What can this lead to? In the case of, let's look at COVID. We were studying COVID. We were engineering a new disease so we could study it and how to have an antidote to it. What kind of monsters think this is a good idea? And obviously, we were lied to about the whole thing, but it just turned into a horrible thing that killed, I think, over 1 million people. It was probably a couple million. I'm not sure what the total count was, but that was something that could have been avoided. It was not some natural disease that came upon us. It was something that the Chinese, with the help of Fauci and the US government, constructed. Absolutely horrifying. And I was going to tell you too, the reason I came out here today, there's an extinct species, not an extinct, an almost extinct species of wolves that live right here in North Carolina, right? And that is another thing that was cloned by this company, Colossal. They cloned these dire wolves, which I guess it's not technically a real dire wolf because it's not 100% a dire wolf, but I guess it's pretty close. They also cloned these red wolves. They are trying to repopulate the red wolves who have been dying off, not necessarily because of mankind, but you know, they do go and attack the farmers' livestock, so the farmers will shoot them thinking they are coyotes. But coyotes, they moved in and they started mating with these red wolves, and now there are barely any pure red wolves left. And I came here because this is the friend of the red wolf. I'm here at this park, Friends of the Red Wolf. You can't see it probably too well. I wanted to show you all, or just discuss with you. Now, you could be thinking I'm making a big deal out of nothing. You could be thinking I'm a prude. I'm one of those stupid Christians who don't want any progress. Might as well just become Amish. Why don't you hold true to all of that? Now, that's not me. I am happy for many scientific advancements. I am not happy with genetic engineering. I am not happy with cloning. I am certainly and absolutely against the deletion of babies in the womb. These things have become mainstream. These things have become monstrous. We do it as birth control now for many people. Oh, you didn't use protection, you had sex with whoever, just go and get an abortion, because then we can do it again in a couple months. It's disturbing. It has completely left us empty and hollow. I beg you, consider what God has shown us through the Old and the New Testament about morality and ethics, and think about if this is a good idea. Not that we can do anything to stop it. That's not what I'm saying. Jesus told us that this world is going to be just like the days of Noah in the end times. The days of Noah were pure evil. They were so evil that people didn't understand how evil they were. They were, as Jesus said, getting married and giving away in marriage and partying and having a great time, and all of a sudden the rains came and the floodwaters came. The same thing will happen again. We don't know where, we don't know when. Jesus says that only the Father knows the time. Which, you are a Christian, especially if you're a pro-choice Christian, please consider what you are supporting. Consider if you truly support genetic manipulation. Consider all of these things. Pray hard for the answers, because again, it's just a fresh story. I understand that there's still a lot to contemplate. And there are absolutely benefits that can come from this. Absolutely. As I said, we could help maybe get rid of many diseases by using genetic engineering. But what's the cost? Are you willing to pay the cost? Are you willing to do that? Is it worth it? I'll leave that up to you. To me, the answer is no, it is not worth it. And again, I get it. I do not have a child who has some deformity or crippling abnormality. And I don't have to live in that reality. I understand. I do, however, live in constant pain. And the only way to fix a nerve, because that's the pain I have is a nerve pain, and my right sciatic nerve was damaged in surgery. The only way to fix that is through some kind of stem cell or some kind of treatment like that. I don't know if that's worth it or not. I really don't. I was all for it in the beginning. Now I think that I'm against it. And I really do think that if it comes to that, I probably will just go on living the way God has me living now. But I will pray hard about it for sure. And if I hear an argument or God shows me otherwise, then I will follow him always. I always follow God. I do not care what man tells me. If it is other brothers and sisters in Christ, I absolutely take your consideration closely, for sure. People who are atheists, people who are secular, I don't listen to them at all, because I don't trust their ethics and morality. All right, everybody. I love you guys so much. God bless.